Hey guys, welcome to Through the Bible, verse by verse, a plain and simple study of the entire Bible, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse. We are in 2 Samuel, chapters 16 and 17. And David is on the run. Okay, he's on the run. Absalom has him on the run. But what we're going to see in as we move on with this story, Absalom's revolt, his a coup. Actually, it's not. He's going to actually take control of the country for a short period of time. And so there's a couple of things that comes out here. We're going to see some of the loyalty of people with David. We're going to see how incredibly inexperienced Absalom is. He's going to make some fatal mistakes that will cost him. One of the mistakes I keep saying is he is failing to recognize God. He's failing to acknowledge God, to see God. And so that is going to cost him. Let's bring up. He is going to take bad advice. We'll get to that. And so when we get into this chapter here, Ziba, Mephibosheth's servant, okay, who is Mephibosheth is Jonathan's son of Saul, whom David, remember, said, is there anyone left of the house of Saul so that I could show kindness to? And so David restored all of Saul's property, all his goods to Mephibosheth, and then Mephibosheth was able to eat at the king's table daily. David commanded Ziba to attend to Mephibosheth, and Ziba is going to take advantage of David's misfortune. He's also going to take advantage of Mephibosheth, who, and I'm going to say this, we're going to see this later, fails to meet and join David. David takes note of that. He takes note of that. Ziba is shrewd in that he shows up and he supplies David with, the supplies that they need. But David asks, well, where is Mephibosheth? Where is he? And David takes note of that. And as a result, Ziba lies to David and says that Mephibosheth was rejoicing in David's atrocities, okay, saying that the house of Saul is going to be restored. And let's look at verse 3 here. He says, this is David saying, where is your master's grandson? The king asked, Mephibosheth. Why is he staying in Jerusalem? Ziba replied to the king, for he said, today the house of Israel will be restored to my grandfather's kingdom to me. Now, David, in my opinion, is distraught. He's on the run. And I think, understandably, in this sense, he's not thinking straight. Because this shouldn't have made sense to David, right? In other words, why would he say that when Absalom was the one that was taking control of the kingdom? All right. But in his distraught, then, David, you can almost say disappointment, David hands over all that belongs to Saul, all that belongs to Mephibosheth, all of his property. He turned it over to him. So in a sense, Ziba wins this one, and we're going to see he's not going to. We'll see when David is restored. Let's pick up in verse 5. It says, when King David got to Baram, a man belonging to the family of the house of Saul, was just coming out. His name was Shimei, son of Gera, and he was yelling curses as he approached. He threw stones at David and at all of the royal servants, the people and the warriors on David's right and left. Shimei said, as he cursed, get out, you worthless murderer. The Lord has paid you back for all of the blood of the house of Saul, in whose place you became king, and the Lord has handed the kingdom over to your son Absalom. Look, you are in trouble because you are a murderer. Now there's a few things to unpack with this, because Shimei doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's making really, and understand this, we're going to see him later on in this. In other words, his story's not going to be through here. It is interesting that after, and I would say this is probably close to some, we're around 30 years into David's kingdom. And here you see this sentiment about the house of Saul. In other words, remember, there was when David first took rulership, there was contention between the house of Saul and the house of David. And there are people that thought David never should have had the kingdom. They certainly didn't think his father should have died. But here's where they're wrong. Here's where Shimei is wrong. That first of all, David had nothing to do with Saul's death. David had nothing to do with even God removing Saul. Remember, Saul's downfall was God's doing because Saul was unfaithful to God. And so really David had nothing to do with that. And not only did he have nothing to do with it, remember, when he had the chance that he could have killed Saul, he refused and even felt guilty because he even cut just a corner of his skirt off. So Shimei really doesn't know what he's talking about. He's going off of misplaced, misguided feelings. Like I said, we'll come back to him. Verse 9, Then Abishai, son of Zeruiah, said to the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Now, notice he called them a dead dog. Now, file that in your mind, because I'm just thinking about when Jesus referred to the Canaanite woman as a dog. Here's a good example of why that was so insulting, which means why the lady also, faith was proven to be great, as Jesus said. He said, let me go over and cut his head off. And remember, Abishai certainly would have done it with ease. He was a mighty military warrior. Verse 10. The king replied, sons of Zeruiah, do we agree on anything? Now, this is an interesting statement here. Remember, Zeruiah is David's sister. And even Abishai, his brother Joab, although they never had any inclinations to take over the kingdom, they were still disobedient. They did what they want, mostly Joab. And we kind of see this here, that this statement is telling. It's one of these statements that Abishai was faithful and loyal to David, but yet disobedient. So we kind of see this here, how David kind of snaps at him. Verse 10 again, then the king replied, sons of Zeruiah, do we agree on anything? He curses me this way because the Lord told him. Curse David. Therefore, who can say, why did you do that? Then David said to Abishai and all his servants, look, my own son, my own flesh and blood intends to take my life. How much more now this Benjamite? Leave him alone and let him curse me. The Lord has told him to. Now this is just to me spoken in distraught. Okay, in the moment right here. Um, Perhaps the Lord will see my affliction and restore goodness to me instead of Shimei's curses today. So David and his men proceeded along the road as Shimei was going along the ridge of the hill opposite him. And as Shimei went, he cursed David and threw stones and dirt at him. Finally, the king and all of the people with him arrived, exhausted, so they rested there. So you kind of see this tossing point that there's some people that really kind of had hope in Absalom, and then others didn't. Verse 15. Now Absalom and all of the Israelites came to Jerusalem. Ahithophel was also with them. And when David's friend Hushai, the Archite, came to Absalom, Hushai said to Absalom, "Long live the king, long live the king." Verse 17, is this your loyalty to your friend? Absalom asked Hushai, why didn't you go with your friend? Now, this was astute on Absalom's part. He should ask, why are you here? Why aren't you with your friend David? That he knew, grew up knowing this man was loyal to David. So now, why is he now? He should have took this as a bad sign. And later we're going to see that Absalom's pride, I think, overrode what should have been a conclusion. At the very least, he should have said, all right, I got you, but I'm not going to let you serve with me. Verse 18, not at all, Hushai answered Absalom. I am on the side, the one that the Lord, the people of all men of Israel, have chosen. I will stay with him. Furthermore, whom will I serve if not his son? As I served your fathers in your father's presence, I will also serve in you. Absalom was foolish for accepting this. Verse 20, then Absalom said to Ahithophel, give me your advice. What shall I do? Now he's saying this in sort of like this kind of prideful way here. Verse 21, Ahithophel replied to Absalom, sleep with your father's concubines. He left to take care of the place. And when all of Israel hears that you have become repulsive to your father, everyone with you would be encouraged. So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and he slept with his father's concubines in the sight of all of Israel. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. This is going to help us to understand something that Solomon will do. I want you to keep this. Here was this vile act of Absalom to sleep with his father's concubines. Concubines were more than side pieces. They were considered wives, but not entitled to anything that a wife would be entitled to. They kind of served at the pleasure, right? But nevertheless, they were concubines and they belonged to people. So here is David, concubines. These were the women where he would go and he would sleep with them. They were David's. They were the kings. Everyone knew they were the kings. And here is to establish his kingdom and his authority. He does this repulsive thing by sleeping with all of David's concubines. Now, that kind of sealed, you can almost say it sealed whatever he was attempting to do. That the break with his father, this was sealing that break. Now he did that at Ahithophel advised. Now look at verse 23. Now the advice Ahithophel gave in those days was like someone asking him about a word from God. Such was regard that both David and Absalom had for Ahithophel's advice. So now what is going to be said is that Absalom will not follow that. Had he followed Ahithophel's advice, his kingdom would have been strengthened and established. But watch what happens. It's chapter 16, verse 1. Ahithophel said to Absalom, let me choose 12,000 men, and I will set out in pursuit of David tonight. I will attack him while he is weak and weary. throw him into a panic, and all the people with him were scattered. I will strike down only the king and bring all the people back to you. And when everyone returns except the man you are seeking, all the people would be at peace. This proposal seemed good to Absalom and all the elders. Now, this is amazing because I want you to pay attention to this here. This is the advice Absalom should have followed. He should have followed this advice. This was good advice. Now watch this. Verse 5. Then Absalom said, summon Hushai the Archite also. Let us hear what he has to say as well. So here's my thing. Why? Why would you summon this man? Now you have to get the picture that Absalom's kind of just sitting up on the throne. He's really feeling himself. Right? He's in control. He's the man. Give me your advice. Give me your advice. But this is bad advice. Now watch what happens. So Hushai came to Absalom, and Absalom told him, Ahithophel offered this proposal. Should we carry out his proposal? If not, what do you say? Hushai replied to Absalom, the advice that Ahithophel has given this time is not good. Now watch this. Notice he said this time. Everyone knows that Ahithophel gives good advice. But this time he says, no, it's not good. Verse 8. Hushai continued, you know your father and his men. They are warriors and are desperate like a wild bear robbed of her cubs. Your father is an experienced soldier who won't spend the night with the people. He is probably already hiding in one of the caves or other place. If some of our troops fall first, someone is sure to hear and say there has been a slaughter among the people who follow Absalom. Then even a brave man with the heart of a lion will melt, because all Israel know that your father is a valiant man. All of Israel will know that your father and the valiant men with him are warriors. Instead, I advise that all of Israel from Dan to Beersheba, as numerous as the sand by the sea, be gathered to you, and that you personally go into battle. Then we will attack David wherever we find him. We will descend on him like dew on the ground. Not even one will be left of all the men with him. If he retreats to some city, all of Israel will bring ropes to that city, and we will drag its stones into the valley until not even a petal can be found there. Now, notice this commentary now. Verse 14. Since the Lord had decreed that Ahithophel's good advice be undermined in order to bring about Absalom's ruin, Absalom and all of the men of Israel said, the advice of Hushai the Archite is better than the advice of better than Ahithophel's advice. Now, this is kind of amazing here because, again, why is he listening to Hushai's advice, right? He like I say, even if he wanted to spare his life, he should have said, I'm going to put you out. I'm not going to let you be in the service. The other question is then, so why is he following Hushai's advice? Sorry for butchering again these names. Why is he following his advice? In my opinion, I think he is the pride of it, that this victory would be even greater, right? More. I mean, if he not only if he kills David, but if he destroys all of David's warriors, which should have contradicted what he was saying at first, but Hushai was saying at first. If David and his men are truly the warrior that they are, wouldn't they fight even harder? And so this right here becomes, I think, it kind of seals the fate of Absalom his pride, which of course the reason why he thought that he could successfully mount a coup against his father and win. Tragic. This young man who, thought he could be king. All right, guys, we'll pick it up in chapter 17 again in the next study. Don't forget to like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you all next time.